I request everybody to please welcome our moderator, Mr. Rishabh Jain, Senior Program Lead, Q. We have few panelists here with us to discuss this session with us. Mr. Bhupendra Rawat, CEO, Dash PV Technologies Limited. We welcome you. Mr. Sukmu Mugdola, Director Sales and Indian Operation RCT Solution. Mr. Vinit Mittal, Director Finance and Strategy, Niftas Solar. Mr. Hiten Parikh, President, Grew Energy Private Limited. Mr. Abhinav Maharaj, Director, IB Solar. Now I request Mr. Rishabh Jain to please conduct the session. Thank you.
And there's much that has happened in India in the last couple of years. You would have heard about the policies such as PLI, ALM, and BCD. While there is a lot of momentum in the domestic manufacturing in India and in the world, but there are also tons of challenges. Hopefully in this panel, we'll touch upon some of those, on what are these challenges, how can we better some of the efforts that we are doing, and what are the steps that we need to take both in the short and the long term. I'll maybe start, and there are two questions that I would want to raise to each of these panelists. And we have a very good mix of individuals and organizations that they are representing across the solar value chain. And I'll focus on two things. One is on the competitiveness, how can Indian manufacturers be competitive? And the other is on the raw materials and equipment side of things, because that's also discussed very actively now in the manufacturing ecosystem. I'll start with you, Hiten, first. There is a huge demand for diversified supply chains, specifically in the developed world, where they are able to pay slightly premium for products that do not come from markets that are very concentrated, specifically from China. And they also generally, I think, there are many steps that both the government and private parties are taking up to do that. And India, that has put India in slightly favorable step, because we already have a 50 plus, 60 plus gigawatts of module manufacturing capability in the country. But module manufacturing is one side of things, but there are many other components that we need to still import, and they get to be manufactured in the country, while of course there are many good examples that are emerging. How are you able to provide or address the demands of diversified supply chains, by which you would also need to procure products not just from India but maybe other countries? Are they technically at the level that you would want them, or at the cost that you would want them? And is it even available itself in the first place? So happy to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Rishabh. Hello, everyone. My name is Hiten. I work with the organization Grew Energy, which is part of 50-year-old group Chirpal. I think the world is ready to look beyond the existing sources of supply chain. And more than the supply, I think ethical supply, ethically produced equipment on solar as well as wind is really what the West is looking at. And even though it is painful for them, but I think they are committed in their venture of or in their pursuit of sourcing ethically produced equipment. And I feel as a country, India has really matured and shown a lot of strength in terms of diversifying, not just by producing plain vanilla solar panels, which used to happen maybe a decade back, but now we have a very strong supply chain in terms of aluminum frames are available now from groups like Hindalco, and Hindalco acquiring a European company, Sapa. So the extrusions of aluminum products are now made in India as well. We have glass companies like Borosil who have demonstrated a big production, and also acquiring companies and technologies from Germany. So we have a lot of vertically integrated glass equipment or glass supply available as well. And then we have groups like Visakha who have shown, in addition to Renewsys, the availability of encapsulants and bag sheets as well. So I feel India is now ready to source, and of course, my fellow panelist who's raising an eyebrow, the junction boxes are also now made in India. And I congratulate Bhupendra to take a big step and launch multi-gigawatt production of the junction boxes as well. Having said that, I think India still needs a support in terms of low-cost financing and some incentives on whatever export is being able to do by the Indian companies. There should be some reward from the government side so that not only technology-wise, but also financially, commercially, we should be able to compete at par along with our peers or our neighboring countries. Thanks, Rishabh.
Thank you, Hiten. I'll come to you next, Arjun. Um, One is, of course, on the availability of some of these products, etc. But the other thing that we are witnessing that is changing very rapidly is the technology. Um, Not just in modules, but of course across the supply chain. But specifically in modules, I saw news recently that there are very high chances, but even perovskites may get commercialized by end of this decade and become mainstream by 2040. And of course, within even the current in crystalline, we have seen different types. Right now, N-type is now becoming even more mainstream. There's TOPCon, HJT, Tandem, and there's so many different mixes that are possible. With such changes in technology, how can or how would a company plan for their raw material supplies? Does it even change? Does not change? Specifically long term, because if you plan for long term, you can also get benefits of low cost. And same for equipment. So at what level does the change starts becoming problematic? Maybe at module it is not, but at cells and maybe as you go backwards. And how do you see this panning out? Or do you think for the next few years we are sorted and we don't necessarily need to do anything and maybe later? So how do you see the technology, evolution of technology as an opportunity or a challenge for India?
Yes, this is Arjun. I am working for Swellet. It's a 40 years old company which is located in Coimbatore. Our manufacturing plant is located in Coimbatore and we have an office in Chennai. We are into manufacturing of solar modules, structures, BOS, and we are into IPP and EPC and all the value chain, of course. So coming back to this point, let us start a decade before where BFS is predominantly doing very well. Like we saw aluminum back surface field. It's run almost like, if I'm not wrong, around 10 years, there is no other technology which has came up. It's running with poly and it's moving on. Then suddenly, PERC has came in, and PERC is now 2 years old, and we are not today talking about TOPCon, which is changing again. So, and we don't know how long this TOPCon will last, but to answer these things, on paper, if you see the TOPCon efficiencies, it may go up to 26 kind of number, 26.5 or close to 27. It goes, and HJT can go up to, at commercial levels, it can go up to 28. And with TOPCon, zero bus bar, it can go up to 27. So this is the ranking of efficiencies. Now, we know that HJT is way before than TOPCon. Few manufacturers already produced HJT long back. But people are not choosing that path. If you see the world, it's not choosing HJT path. Majority of the manufacturers, they're choosing TOPCon as a route. Why TOPCon as a route? Because with the present capacities, what is available with them, with adding few more tools, they can go from PERC to TOPCon. With little bit of investment, they can go. And again, with little bit of investment on top of that, they can go to zero bus bar in TOPCon, which will again increase around 0.5 to 1% of efficiency. So, and then they may go to tandem or whatever it is. So what I want to say is, yes, technology is keeping changing every day. I'll say every day, literally. Every day it is changing. Every day it's some new dynamics are coming in. But at the end of the day, LOCE has to come down. That's what it is driving the factor. Driving factor is LOCE. And we see yes, it's a problem from CapEx point of view, but LOC has to come down and it'll pay back, like lines can pay back in 3 years, 4 years, the payback come. And TOPCon will last for another 5, 6 years. That's what we feel, whether it's in bus bar or zero bus bar, it can last for another 5, 6 years. And after that, maybe tandem will come into place. So we may be securing our assets or CapEx, which we spend today, may go for a 5, 6 years. That's what, but it's very tough to say at this point of time. But again, it's always better to keep on increasing the efficiencies and keep on decreasing LOCs. That's only the key factor which is driving, rather than CapEx investment, rather than other things which are playing around.
Thank you. I'll come to you next, Abhinav. And I'll build on what Arjun and Hiten had mentioned, specifically on the availability of these raw materials and the equipment itself. Given all these changes, especially in the technology, and what he also mentioned in terms of, at the end of the day, you should be competitive. One, in your experience, are you witnessing the growth of some of these companies where you would want to procure many of these raw materials domestically? But are these like some examples, of course, that Hiten mentioned, and of course we have Bhupendra also here, but beyond some of these components, which may be backsheet and junction box, is there like an ecosystem that is developing, or are you still struggling, or generally, not you as in, but I'm saying the sector is still struggling to find many of these bill of material manufacturers to supply in India for Indian manufacturers? Because if the capacity is 60 gigawatt, we would need maybe equivalent or more to support some of these, including, I would say, glass, aluminum frames, all of these. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishabh. That's a very, very valid question in the present context. My name is Abhinav Mahajan. I am from IB Solar, and we are one of the leading solar PV module manufacturers based in Greater Noida. Our present manufacturing capacity is around 500 megawatt, and as very rightly mentioned, we are ready to touch around 100 gigawatts. So along with the industry pace, IB Solar is also expanding. We'll be touching around 1.1 gigawatt by early February 2025. And as we are progressing based on the market demand, very rightly said that the industry ecosystem has to equally progress along with the module manufacturing pace. So when we talk about module manufacture, pace of module manufacturing, module manufacturers requires major 6 to 7 components, whether it's glass, solar cell, aluminum frame, junction box, backsheet, EVA, all these are important raw material which goes in making of a quality of a solar PV module, whether it's tandem cell, whether it's HJT, whether it's monopug, any kind of raw material. So we have module manufacturing undoubtedly is growing at a very, very rapid pace. But I would say that the other key raw material is not growing at that pace which we would like to expect. Because especially the major scarcity we are experiencing with the availability of DCR cell. That is the biggest question mark which we are experiencing. Yes, there are other raw material like glass and junction boxes. Glass is the second bottleneck. Other raw material, more or less, we are able to procure. But yes, the quality we have to check. Quality, we have to make sure that we get the right quality material. And other components, yes, availability is there and they are equally competitive as well. But I would still further stress on the biggest question mark. The industry at present is not, the cell industry, domestic cell industry is not able to catch up with the industry growth, industry expectations, module manufacturers' demand, and that becomes a big bottleneck in supplying good quality DCR make modules to the market which the industry requires. But at the same time, I would rely on my own experience of module manufacturing for last about a decade now, more than a decade now. We are a 30-year-old company, and in module manufacturing for more than a decade now. We started in late 2014, so it's been almost a decade now. When we started manufacturing, 95 to 96% of market share was captured by Chinese. And we never ever imagined, we never thought that industry will grow at that pace that model manufacturers, Indian model manufacturers will be able to cater so much of demand which the industry is demanding. We never thought that it was a challenge for us in the beginning to be readily acceptable by the Indian EPC contractors or the developers or the system integrators. We have to fight really hard with Chinese players. Slowly or gradually, we were able to prove that yes, we are as competitive, as good quality as our Chinese counterparts are. Later down the year, 6, 7 years down, now we are experiencing complaints in those panels which the system integrators have procured from our neighboring country, China. Because there is no replacement, there is no service on those panels. So gradually system integrators have realized that it's easy to catch on hold of Indian players, who are our local brothers and sisters. They are easy to catch hold on them. But with China, the major question mark is after sales service. Yes, initially you will be able to save on some cost, probably, but later down the cost, we are replacing at present around 15 megawatt of orders we have in hand, which is all going for replacement of the panels which was supplied just 2-3 years ago by our Chinese players. So that is a big question mark. So gradually people have realized that the procurement of these critical items should be locally only. To set the same, manufacturing ecosystem cannot be built on a single day. It takes time. It requires government trust, government push, government incentives. When ALM got imposed, the Indian manufacturing took us good pace, and people also recognize that yes, we have to buy locally manufactured panels now. So if panels are getting locally manufactured, for that local BOS will also be set up gradually. So said and same that it cannot be, the ecosystem cannot be built, the Rome cannot be built on one day. So gradually it will take some time. But yes, I think we are in the right direction also. At present, we are finding some challenges, but gradually it will take some time and we will slowly be able to catch up with industry demand.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhinav. Interesting points that you've made. In case something happens with junction box, now you know someone who you can catch. But jokes aside, Bhupendra, he did mention about cells and glass as one of the limiting factors. Thankfully, junction box were not mentioned, thanks to you and some of the new companies that we are seeing in India. How easy or difficult is it to manufacture junction box? At the outset, it looks like maybe a simple box, but I'll go into the technology later. But if you can tell me the availability of some of these machines that are used in manufacturing, some of the components that go into those, did that ecosystem already exist, or did you also have to co-create that ecosystem, or are you still reliant maybe on imports on some of these components? How did you do it? That is, and if there are any learnings that you would want to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Rishabh. Good evening, friends. My name is Bhupendra Rawat. I am the CEO of Dash PV Technologies Limited. We are 8 years old company and currently with a capacity of 32 gigawatts. We proudly say that we are the global #1 non-Chinese integrated junction box manufacturer. So the very valid point, you said it. See how we started it, right? So when we started also with the assembly. So the basic raw material here is the engineering plastic, which is then converted into the components like housing, cable cover, glands, connectors and all. So basically design is something which has to be in-house. So that is one of the very, very critical point. A company who is getting into our kind of manufacturing has to have a design capability in-house. The first point. Second point about the other raw materials. Yes, as I said, engineering plastics. Now these are all the normal plastics which we are talking about. These are MPP, which is like modified polyphenylene ether. Now this kind of plastic is manufactured. Currently there are 2 global players only available in the world, which all the junction box manufacturers are sourcing their plastic from. So, of course, we are also sourcing from them only. But the good part is, we started 2018, after 1 year, we started junction box manufacturing in 2018, after 1 year of research, thorough research. And then we realized that only making junction box assembly will not suffice the need. We need to get into further backward integration. That was the time we started our own polymer division, wherein we do all the plastic components by ourselves. So earlier, when we started, we were outsourcing it. Now we are doing 100%. All the plastic components are done by us only. We are the company having dual certification, not only IC and UL, but also IC plus UL on all our products. So this was one thing we realized, that this was a learning, as you said, that only with assembly, like today, module also more or less is an assembly. But unless you create an ecosystem around and get into the value chain presence, I'm sure that the competitiveness is not going to come. But most importantly, design capabilities is must. Now, what we have realized is, as I'm sure that, all of our industry, globally is feeling that, pinch. And that's why the barriers are being created by every country, that you cannot compete China only by having a value chain presence. So you need to have barriers as well. But even then, from our industry point of view, there are other components like cable, which is almost 35 to 40% of the component of junction box. There is diode, another 30-40% component. So these are the two components. What we adopted the strategy was that currently we are actually doing OEM within India about DC cables, because these are not the normal cables, what we are talking. These are all electron beam cross-link process, which is specific, which is actually getting into radiation manufacturing. And we have the OEM for that. And diode is something which I'm sure there is nobody available today in India, and it is 100% dependency on imports. After realizing all these things, now we have already launched our Giga plant, where we are getting into complete backward integration. We have already launched now, we are getting into DC cable manufacturing. We'll be doing it in 2 phases, 1,000 kilometers per day. And also the diode manufacturing, which is the heart of junction box, around 1.2 million diodes per day. So what we are doing is basically getting into complete value chain integration. Other than that, as I said, it is very, very difficult, because imports data you can see and also realize that the top price, the junction box, the maximum and the minimum price difference gap is more than 40%. So it is obvious that, anybody would feel that, that is the kind of margin available in this industry, but it is not. So that's how, the other competitive, other countries, our neighboring countries are actually building the capacities, and they are dumping. So as an industry, if you really want to create the ecosystem, you need to not only have backward integration, in-house design capabilities, the innovative products, but there is a government support required in terms of, like module industries already have that. One side there is a ALMM, the other side there is a duty, BCD. And now I'm sure that, the third one also, the files are moving in, wherein we are talking about anti-dumping duty. But the component industry, I'm sure, is untouched as of now. Only the recently, the glass has got 11% duty, and also the copper did got the BCD of 5.5%. But that is not something which will actually help. Even after 44% duty in solar modules, the imports were happening, left and right. I'm sure that module industry, domestic module industry, was not able to face that heat, and that's why ALMM has actually, prevented imports. So it is not only one, help. Whereas in component level, if you see, the maximum duty is 11%. So what we think that, if you need to really create an ecosystem, there has to be some kind of benefits in terms of course, local value addition, which can be as high as 70%. I'm sure that DCR would help. And we can also have our own ALAM, approved list of ancillary manufacturers, which will actually comprise of all the module components, including encapsulant, backsheet. See, fortunately, junction box, we have been able to increase our capacities up to 32 gigawatt currently, and another 6 months' time will be 63 gigawatts. But I'm sure that sustaining that becomes very, very difficult, because every month on month there is going to be a decrease in price, import pricing. So these all benefits, if there are coming, these benefits are going to come, definitely the domestic ecosystem can be created, which is must, as power is no more, kind of a basic requirement, but it has become a security today for the country.
Thank you, Bhupendra. I'll next come to Sukumar. Sukumar, of course, you have heard all of them, and I'm sure you are in very active conversations with many other manufacturers. So those who don't know, of course, Sukumar and his team, they actively help manufacturers in setting up some of these facilities. Maybe you can also introduce the work that you do. But in your process of supporting some of the equipment manufacturers and maybe PLI winners and others, there are two broad things that are often discussed. One is, of course, the finance side of things. The other is, where do you source some of these equipments from and at what cost? Because at the end of the day, only then you'll become competitive when the prices are low. And I've heard, and I don't want to be quoted, but I've heard that the prices of many non-Chinese equipments are twice compared to the Chinese equipments across for module, cell, and maybe even backwards, which then really dissuades many of these companies to buy products from maybe European equipment manufacturers. Given that you're a German firm yourself, how easy or difficult has it been to support some of these companies in diversifying their equipments? And at the same time, even if you're able to diversify or not diversify, is there a challenge with the spares technical know-how with the equipment generally? So once you buy, is that done, or do you constantly need maintenance for year on year on year, every year, does it change, etc.? So if you can link both those, that would be helpful. But yeah, feel free to introduce what you also do.
Thank you, Rishabh. I think wrapping up this first topics, I'm Sukumar. I'm from Asade Solutions, Germany. Also, we have a counterpart in India. We are an engineering and technology advisory firm. Like Rishabh rightly introduced, we help customers who are in a beginning phase looking into investments to execution, like from zero to end. So we see, at least myself, when I was there first in Mundra for the... So first in Mundra for ramping up the first cell line, at least in the career, with the BSF, which Arjun started on this. So there was a lot of complications, like module market is growing and a lot of ramping up happening in module, but there is always a gap, even till today, on the solar cell, but we used to do. But Rishabh, like you asked the question on the gap, everyone knows that one continent decides on the equipment, on the capex and the pricing, and even Indian players are also known for the cost-sensitive executions. And I would say with the learning curve, so like early with what IB Solar, when you started in the early 2014, maybe you have felt the Chinese are not that experienced in doing that module equipment, but you also cannot afford as a new player the European equipment because the capex is high. So what we did, we worked with such players to bring a mix and match scenarios. Generally, this goes well to the investors who are investing in solar cell lines or module lines, whichever value stream, even same with ancillary equipment. Maybe there is a majority stake for Chinese, but there will be always a footprint for quality and long-term commitments, like also the panel was discussing on the OPEX side. Like there's always a cost to be spent after CapEx. Please, that should be remembered. After CapEx is running cost, monthly, yearly, even after sales service support, how we do this. Even till today, India has a 2 gigawatt ingot wafer plant also running in India, and this was executed by us, also installed by us, by an engineering firm. This shows how the capability of the one nation not able to come to India on a required note to do such projects. So what we try to do, a common ground to help clients to have a mix and match scenario. At the same time, I understand why everyone wants a turnkey because of the liability issue on the contracts, because investors likes to have one contract partner. So this can be avoided, this can be bypassed by having a proper mix and match cherry pick. But at the same time, one leader should come from the group and say, I will take care of the liability of the KPIs. This way we managed, and if you see in the Indian hemisphere now in the solar cell, not on the module, but you see a lot of players having German equipment and Chinese mix, which are running successfully. Also full Chinese with German engineering firms like us also running successfully. So there is equal stories to learn from. And taking forward, I also see a lot of German equipment or European equipment also coming into Indian ground, especially from the upstream into cell, not because of capex, it's also from the export market. Like everyone wants to export outside India because there will be enough overcapacities in the future. So everyone wants to be the ESG compliance and also the quality compliances. So there will be enough know-how to be shared. So we see this mix and match scenario will continue fighting on the capex, but this will sustain.
Interesting. Thank you, Sukumar. This is, of course, the first round of, and I'll maybe start with the next round of questions. Hiten, I'll come to you again next. We released a report during RE Invest in Gandhinagar a couple of weeks ago, where we tried to identify sectors and segments in the clean energy supply chain where India can potentially become competitive in the long term. And then we realized that, of course, there are many segments where we have never done any manufacturing. And as we move backwards, specifically in the PLI winners, like you'll have to do 60, 70, 80, and 90% of manufacturing domestically. Developing that immediately can be challenging because one, of course, you have to stabilize your module, cell, then also get into ingot, wafer, polysilicon. All of these in a short span of time is very challenging. What can be beneficial is, of course, if there are existing skills, infrastructure, capabilities, technical know-how that may exist in some other sector, which can then be potentially moved on to this sector. And we are trying as part of another exercise to identify what these sectors can be. And then that is exactly what I want to ask you also, that GRU, of course, started very recently and at a large scale. But it is also part of a larger group, Chirpal group, in chemicals, textiles, and other industries. Beyond, of course, bringing the financial power and capability, did any of those technical know-how and understanding of many, many years and decades, did that flow and did that help? And how was that brought to GRU in any way?
Yeah. Thanks, Rishabh. Thanks, Rishabh. Yeah, I think definitely being part of a large umbrella like the Chirpal Group, one is it of course provides a lot of financial stability and a financial backup. You're not like really cash strapped day in, day out. Second is being in the business for 50 years or 5 decades, the group obviously understands how to work with the government mechanism and work with the states and really figure out which state is giving you the best incentives, how do you monetize, how do you get a more value on your dollar. In addition to that, I think the strength and the importance of being more vertically integrated and more vertically independent, I think that is what we really were able to learn from the group with respect to like our denim business. The denim business is one of the largest denim manufacturers in the country, Vishal Fabrics. And from there we learned that to source the cotton, the group has really built a vertical SCM to go right up to the farmer level where we source the cotton directly from the farmers. And as we all discussed and we keep hearing that module is really just an assembly business. It's not truly manufacturing at all. And in the pursuit to keep lowering the LCOE, you need to have reliable modules which will perform 30 years, which will give you an yield of 30 years, which are not going to degrade beyond the permissible limits to make sure that the Excel IRRs don't fail. The equity investor is happy, the lenders are happy, they get paid their EMIs every month. And to do that, you really need to make sure that the quality of your input is reliable and it's robust, because once a module is made, once it's out, it's done. you just can't repair it. You can't do nothing with it except replace it. Or probably as country matures more, we have more installation, then probably there is a market for the second sales of second-hand modules. But right now, you just have to get it right the first time. And while the Indian industry is learning to build modules at gigawatt levels, the technology is also very different. Conventionally producing P-type modules and then switching over to N-type modules is really a very different science on its own, because the lamination is different, the way you seal the aluminum frame with the glass is different, the way you handle the whole chemistry is different, the way you have the per minute or the per module, how much minutes is required to completely build a module. Those numbers change. And the developers, they are now facing another challenge, that is, because the many Indian manufacturers are not tier 1, they don't have the reliability test certificates, they've really not seen a couple of years with the N-type TOPCon. So how do the developers really go out and make these modules bankable, which gives comfort to the lender that, okay, fine, I will invest 75% of the project cost on the module which is being made for the first time by an Indian company. So they're having a strong balance sheet, coming back to the question of Rishabh, they're having a strong group balance sheet, like a $3 billion outlay from Chiripal Group. This really gives, of course, a large extent of comfort to the lenders that, okay, fine, the venture is new, the technology is new, but the equipment are bankable. We have RCT as one of our primary consultants. So, the knowledge is there, the expertise is there, the components are right. Also, being a first-time manufacturer and understanding the value of the merit of very solid quality of input material. We have a world-class laboratory at our Jaipur factory. It's probably an investment of $3 million, and most of the testing equipment is from Switzerland or from Germany. And having that borrowed wisdom, that what goes in, the quality of what comes out is as good as what input is going in. So definitely there's a merit being a part of a large group like Chiripal, because in my previous companies, especially in a couple of manufacturing companies in my tenure, I understood that it's such a heavy cash sensitive business. And if your developer project is delayed, if your EPC doesn't pay you on time, you're always under cash-strapped pressure, and it can be very disturbing. And I think having an entrepreneur like Mr. Mahajan with us, he's obviously gone through this pain of having a constant cash flow, and then keeping up with the brunt of the Chinese manufacturers. It's just relentless efforts. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Hiten. Arjun, I'll come to you next. There are, of course, in the recent years, we have seen the scale of minimum manufacturing has increased. Now we are talking about factories that are 10 gigawatt, 20 gigawatt, 50 gigawatt, either at same place or maybe a company which has multiple locations. Within even PLI, I think the maximum, of course, was 10 gigawatt integrated. And many of these organizations also may be backed by larger groups that we have seen, of course, within PLI also, but outside also. But despite this, we see a vibrant ecosystem of many manufacturers who have been slightly more conservative on scale up. And of course, you are there, Abhinav is also here, where you have also taken a judicious call of not actively scaling up tomorrow to 2 gigawatt, 5 gigawatt, 7 gigawatt. And I see the benefits also as a researcher, because there's so much overcapacity that exists itself in the domain. And sometimes this can potentially, while lead to consolidation, but if you're judicious enough, you can maintain your USP. So my question is that in this whole ecosystem within India, globally, how do you distinguish yourself as a manufacturer which may not necessarily have the largest scale and may not also be very much backward integrated? How do you distinguish yourself? So while you can reflect, Abhinav, you can also maybe talk about briefly on that. Thank you.
Yes. Coming to that question, before I would like to answer, what is the potential market in India? Because everyone is ramping up. Everyone is doing, like, every day we see in news, like 1 giga, 10 giga, some different numbers. Let us put in simple numbers. PM Surya Gruha, I hope everyone is bus in the market today. It's around 38 giga, if I'm not wrong, and close to 38 giga. And as PM pumping schemes, it's another 35 giga. And DCR for MNRE related partners and all, they release the tenders, which is 50 giga. So all this put together, we are having around 100 to 120 giga as a visibility right now. And that too, these are all from DCR. And you know, today, to export to any European market, we should be net zero. Net zero is coming up very quick than what we expected. So all the other segments, apart from solar, other manufacturers who are exporting their products to Europe, they are forced to go with solar or any renewable energy, not only solar, but solar is easy. They just mount on the roof and they just start generating power from the next day after the installation is done. So there's a huge market, yes. But at what stage it stops? That's another thing. We also saw some articles. By 2040, there may be overcapacity in India, like what China is doing today, or the other countries you saw that prices are crazy. It's like way, way low than the input cost itself. Yeah. So I can say for next 10 years we are protected maybe for these investments what are coming in. But to answer, yes, like small players, this 1 giga or 500 mega to the 13, 14 giga numbers, how these players. So keeping this in mind and DCR and everyone has their market share today, if you ask me, even though it's a small player. Because the market is such a large today, that everyone is having their own pie in the game. That's the thing. And the second thing, yes, as a Swellet or as our company, our strategy is not selling modules, selling power. So our business is to sell power. Where the end customer doesn't bother anything, you're just buying from any distribution company at some price. So we offer you at some price. So there's a delta less. So an end consumer is free from all these things. You give me power, I'll give you money. It's simple as that. If model doesn't work or something goes wrong, it's your thing, you can handle that. It's eventually the business will move towards that. That's what we are thinking. And apart from that, keeping small is always better. That's also our philosophy, we see. We have tight controls. We have very tight controls in our incoming material. That point, the other few panelists has pointed out that strong reliability capabilities in our in factories, and that's today's requirement. Like every factory, even it is 10 giga or 1 giga, they need to have a reliability setup in a factory. Because we are ensuring that 30 years is our thing, and we cannot run away from India, right? At the end of the day. So this, when we promise our customer, we are there for next 30 years, and we are selling power, I think our market shares is there. We need not to run here and there.
Thank you, Arjun. Abhinav, if you can also reflect on that, but I would also build on the domestic demand. While I would say, again, we are a policy research institution, we would also want to see more deployments in the country. The current state of deployment, while it's impressive on the growth, the actual numbers, I think, can still be better, both at large scale, small scale, for the pumps, etc. So the potential, of course, there's no doubt, I think, India will sooner or later be one of the largest markets on clean energy deployments, solar, wind, batteries, EVs. But I think that hockey stick is yet to start. And last year, I think we deployed maybe around 15 gigawatts. This year, we are expecting 25. But the reality is we may have around 60 plus, so twice the size of the manufacturing compared to what may be needed in this year itself. Do you, as you reflect, of course, on the size of the manufacturing capacities, how important do you think are these, the actual deployment on the ground? And if you can also reflect a bit more on who are these segments that you may be catering compared to maybe a PLI winner, very much integrated, may not be catering. Is there a difference? Are you also then competing for the same set of people, different set of people? How do you, if not the product, do you distinguish or differentiate yourself in the kind of offerings that you have? So that would also be good.
See, Rishabh, the question which you have asked is the nightmare question for all the manufacturers is also. That all the manufacturers keep on asking the same thing amongst themselves, amongst each others, that now we have reached 60 gigawatt, and last year's statistics were not that impressive. And very soon we'll be touching 100 gigawatt for not sure. Like for, as my dear colleague, respected colleague mentioned, that every day we are hearing that new manufacturer lining is getting added up. And yes, there is a race. But on the positive side, yes, in the past few years, we have not seen that fast deployment. Although when the solar mission was launched, Jawaharlal Nehru solar mission was launched, the idea was to keep the equal pace of deployment as well as the manufacturing. But somehow manufacturing was left far behind. The main thrust of, was fallen on the deployment side. Investors came in and all, the developers market, developed IPP players came in, and it was all deployment on the field, but manufacturing was lagging behind. Then interestingly, we are really thankful that we are really blessed that we are currently being governed by the government, which is pro-manufacturing. That manufacturing thing cannot be taken away from the agenda of this present government. And that is why this government is highly respected all over the world. This is not a very die-hard statement, like coming from the heart, but from the very factual figures as well. I was recently in RE Plus, and I just yesterday only I landed from a delegation trip to Germany by GSZ. So I was able enough to communicate with a lot of our counterparts in US as well as Germany. And they are also astonished and fascinated by India's growth story, what India has been able to make mark in the global footprint. And also, they are very much interested. I don't think they have any other option. It's like a forceful arranged marriage which is going to happen between India and the rest of the world, because they are also, now the challenge is upon us that arranged marriage we have to convert to love marriage now. So now the challenge is how we are able to impress with our capabilities now, because everybody, the bold statement was on the charts that we are looking to partner with a democratic country, and that clearly summarizes everything. Everybody's agenda was on the paper that we are ready to partner with a democratic country, whether it was US or whether it was European nations. So yes, India has got a very strong potential, and we are at the right footprint. Yes, there are some challenges which we have discussed, that yes, raw material availability is not there, probably the good quality BOS is not available presently. But yes, I am a very, see, as I mentioned, being in this industry for last 10 years, we have seen lot of I would say ups and downs. Lot of turbulence we have faced in the last 10 years of journey. But now I would say that good times have come. Deployment was not fast because there were some policy issues. Now Kusum C has come. Kusum C, with new amendments in Kusum C, the Kusum C is going to take a very good pace. And there were recent in RE Invest, Andhra Pradesh, there was many more governments which are very, very positive about these schemes getting implemented. So we can see very good gigawatt of implementation very shortly. And in my personal calculation, I think we are ready to witness around 30 plus gigawatt by this year. And yes, if we are 60 gigawatt, 30 gigawatt, we are still in surplus. But yes, a lot of export market is ready to partner with us. A lot of export market is there, opportunities are there. And that it's not like every manufacturer is going to enjoy this party. The manufacturers who have been able to build their trust for their previous years of existence in the market, many system integrators, EPC players, manufacturers have come in have been in this industry. And they have come and they have probably left the industry due to some reason or the other. So even the consumer side is not is smart enough to understand who has been in the industry for so long and who has been able to survive all the turbulence, who has been able to present their brand, survive their brand in the market. So it's about building that trust, basically. The customers are able to build trust with the manufacturers. Things are very good, on a very good side.
And also, I just want to add something that we need to remember when we say that, okay, India has, let's say, 110 gigawatt, let's say 1 gigawatt manufacturing. In reality, a manufacturer can only actually, if he's like efficient to the 100%, even then he can just produce 700 megawatt out of that 1 gigawatt. So when you hear or read statements of X gigawatts, you just need to discount 30% straight away because you're never going to get 100% output from the nameplate capacity. The second challenge also comes is quarter one, quarter two is the most tough, the most tight. You don't have work because who wants to build a utility scale project or a rooftop project in the degree of 45, 50 degree temperature? So there's actually no rollout, no build out happening in Q1 because of the heat, because of first quarter. So everybody's conservative. You don't want to release cash. Quarter two is rains. So it's challenge. So imagine a manufacturer who has 1 gigawatt, who can actually build 700 megawatt. He's already lost 6 months, so he has just 350 megawatts what he can build and he can sell. Now imagine if the next 6 months he doesn't have every month 60 megawatt of business. He's done. He's out of the game. So it looks very rosy. It looks really insanely attractive, beautiful. We keep hearing export market is right, but export has its own challenge. You need 12, 18 months before you're ready to go international. You need reliability, you need bankability, you need to be tier 1, you need the ethical bomb, you need to be on the white list of the lenders. You need to first go to America, go to Switzerland, go to Europe. You need to find the customers. So the cost of customer acquisition is extremely high. It is extremely painful. People won't talk to you till you sign an NDA. Now, how many Indian companies can actually understand and sign an NDA very quickly? So, so the pain and the time and the cost is crazy. So anybody who wants to jump into manufacturing, have a lot of money to burn, have a lot of patience. If you're borrowing, you're raising money, raise patient capital, because it's frustrating. From my own experience, I joined GRU 6 months back. In 4 months, we secured 2,000 megawatt of contracts. The legal contracts, the liabilities are crazy. The big buyers who buy you hundreds of megawatts from you, they are going to tie your hands and legs. You have to sign up for a lot of risk, for a lot of liability. So are you ready for that? The balance sheet is has to be able to withhold the risk which comes with the supply of these gigawatts of modules. The second challenge is they will not open LC on time. They will not lift the material on time. They will simply tell you, my site is not ready, my interconnection is not ready, there was rains, there was extended rains, I won't pick up the material. Bhai, हमने factory बनाया था to build modules and to ship them out on time. Today, at the cost of securing a 2 gigawatt pipeline contracts in 4 months, the outcome is I have to rent 3 warehouses just to stock the finished modules because the monsoons came and they just chose to be 2 months more. So the developers won't lift the material. Now, how many Indian companies can have an ability to withhold, let's say, even 300 megawatt of modules for 2 months without getting paid? And the Chinese, they are supplying at 9.5 cents, 10 cents, and the developers are happy because they have grandfathering clause. So they lifted like gigawatts of modules. They got it into the country before ALMM hit. Now imagine when a developer market, which is 15, 20 gigawatt a year, if they have even a quarter of the gigawatt ready with them, why would they want to buy from Indian module company? And then another challenge is everybody wants the modules right on time at the last leg of the project, because who would want to invest 50% of the project cost 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead? तो अब सबको आपको एक साथ ही मॉड्यूल देना है, तो आपके पास 1 गीगावाट है, पर वो 1 गीगावाट हर महीना 100 मेगावाट सप्लाई नहीं हो पाता है. So this dynamics really needs to be understood. I'm sorry, I think I overspoke, but I just thought we needed to come to terms with the reality that module business is a tough business. You can easily go bankrupt. So be very, very careful before you really sign up for this. I have been losing hair from the last 60 days, because imagine when you sell 500 megawatt, 1000 megawatt, you need to get into company hundreds of crores every month. And that's not easy to get into the company from the buyers and the EPCs and the developers. It just drives you crazy. Today, last point, I was talking to a developer. He was from SunSure. And in my head, I'm thinking he's SunSource, because I'm completely zoned out. तो बाद में 10 मिनट के बाद वो मुझे बोलता है, हितेन भाई मैं SunSure से हूँ. And I was like, man, this is just driving me mad.
Thanks, Hitin. Yes, from heart, true. And of course, I mean, in India, given that we have gone through a wave of bankruptcies, right? In 2010, there were many cell companies, Moza Bear and others, and they were unable to survive the competition, the onslaught that we witnessed around 2010 and 12. So we have gone through that phase. Thankfully, as Abhinav mentioned, I think the current policies are very much ring-fenced. Very much ring-fenced with ALMM, BCD, domestic market, everything. So that has been good. But moving from module to junction box, while there are tons of challenges on the module side in selling to global companies, given that you mentioned that you are one of the largest after non-Chinese, are they coming to your doorsteps, and how easy or difficult it has still been to, one is set up this, but then is the demand for such junction box only in India, or are you also seeing global interest for the products itself?
Thanks, Rishabh. So yes, not only India is growing, other countries, US also is growing. Turkey, of course, in Europe, if you see Turkey is growing, of course, they have a little problem, because even though they're having 20 gigawatt of domestic manufacturing, they are still importing, right? So yeah, other countries. But the point what here is that, every country is putting barriers now. So yes, we are also looking at, by next year, as I said, 63 gigawatt, 40% of the exports, and we are exploring US and Europe, some parts of Europe. In fact, we are in touch with the module manufacturers, Indian module manufacturers also opening manufacturing in US, and we may definitely look into, putting up a assembly plant there. Of course, not a fully integrated one, because the advantages in fully integrated would definitely not be there, if you put it in US. So yes, we are putting integrated facility here, and we may get into, assembly manufacturing in US to cater US market. Because in fact, last month I was also there in RE place, and when we met a lot of, your customers, as well as we went to a lot of module manufacturers also, we realized that even US is looking for domestic manufacturers. US also is looking for domestic manufacturing and local value addition. So in fact, they are looking at such a levels. In fact, they have also IRA in place, where junction box also is featuring. Few of the manufacturers, they were saying that sorry, can I continue? So they were saying not even the assembly, they also have to get into injection molding there. The diode has to be manufactured domestically. So which I think does not seem fair as of now, because I am sure the only diode manufacturer, shorty diode manufacturer of our industry, Diotech, I'm sure is not manufacturing, no more manufacturing there. So today they are also importing it, and there are other local manufacturers. Even though the local price realization is much higher, but the local manufacturing cost is very, very high. So possibly, we may tie up with the manufacturers. That's what is the strategy we are adopting. But yes, we are looking for international market because 63 gigawatt, definitely. And when I say 63, we will definitely produce 60. We are not like module industry where, 30% can be discounted. In fact, very recently we have added 4 lines. Before that, we were 15 gigawatt. Just to tell you, last month itself, we produced 1.2 gigawatt in a month. So month on month, we are producing, and the installed and the utilization here would hardly be around 10%. So in our case, when I say 63, we can still manufacture around 56 parts, and we are looking for export markets. US happens to be the best.
Interesting. We didn't, of course, touch upon the international markets where many countries, including US, Europe, there's Australia also now, future made in Australia, where they would want to manufacture some of these products. Yes. And then, of course, there's Turkey, Southeast Asia. I heard recently that the anti-dumping duty in the US will be implemented on the Southeast Asian cells, if I'm correct, for cells that are being shipped to US. So Sukumar, of course, your organization does not only support Indian manufacturers. They may be more actively also supporting European firms, including Germans. There were so many German firms, maybe even US, those in US and Turkey. In India, what do you think can be the regulatory best practices outside in the world that can be brought here? While there are many that exist, but still in the manufacturing side, if there are any that you can touch upon. Secondly, we did not touch on finance in the panel much. So the reason I'm asking you this is that you may, as part of your consulting assignment, suggest that this is the best mix that you should go ahead with. But the finance for that mix may not be available because it may be huge. What are the kind of questions that financiers are asking, which then maybe come to you, and are financiers more educated? So 2 questions. One is, any global regulatory best practice that can come to India from IRA, EU Net Zero Act or otherwise? And secondly, how do you convince financiers to maybe look for many other technical specifications and not just like what is the lowest cost, etc.? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be quick. I think I'm the closing one here. So first on the industry best practice, while I was also traveling in RE+, and we are also active policy maker in IRA, we are involved. I proudly to say PLI was even earlier than IRA. This was well introduced earlier, but not taken advantage. So I would say if we can implement the PLI schemes in a right way, like GRU also a part of the integrated plans, it would have been nice if such policies can be taken more seriously. Like Hiten sir, you said about the overselling and overcapacities of storing modules, this will always be vanished because there will be enough capacities of manufacturing to sell inside India with the best practices doing from the integrated PV manufacturing, like from the back end. If you start from wafer, you will have no chance to have a quality issues coming from your own factory, using for your own cell, using it for your own module. It will be a must to cut the cost. So that practice, such best practices should be in India, and it should be more also applied and seen. And we are working with institutions like NICE and also MNRE to check whether they have been done, they have been implemented. As also Ibisola said, for the marriage, we are preparing the pandir, the platform from the cross-country links. We will bring enough parties to attend the marriage, but all it goes again to the dowries. So at the end, the money speaks, but still, I think there is enough interest. And second, on your question, Rishabh, from the Net Zero Act and all the policies also moving, I see a strong footprint coming, the mix and match in the finance. We are doing more due diligences, more financial due diligences this time in India, last 1 year onwards, because they would like to see a net zero applications, how you are going on a long-term basis, not only from the capex crunch, even there. Some investors which we are working are intend to invest more than you ask. Any of people are showing more numbers. like 30% is reduction in the capacity, although capex-wise 30% is added on top. So this is always a gap, but there on the more long-term aspect, how your portfolio will grow. Even I've seen some players going not only into PV, but PV plus battery storage systems, which will be futuristic, also the hydrogen storage solutions. So we should also focus, like Swelect said, we sell power. But how you will sell power and asset management if you don't have a storage solution for the remaining 10 hours or 8 hours of solution. So I think the players will look supporting module manufacturing plus storage. That will be a future solution in our view, coming from the outside to India. And Indian learnings we are taking to Africa, recently also moving. So this will be the future.
Thank you. In the interest of time, we'll of course stop the panel here and hopefully give you some time to return to your booths and maybe meet the folks who are coming there. But I really think there are many things that I also learned again on the panel itself. There's a lot of interest in my recent travel, both in India and outside. I've realized that there's a lot of interest in diversifying the supply chain. India, of course, is coming as a very attractive alternative. But as all of you had mentioned, I think while we have done a lot, there's much more that we can do so that beyond the PLI, beyond the sunsetting of BCD, ALMM, etc., because I'm sure they'll not continue forever. The module manufacturing, supporting bomb manufacturing can continue for decades and decades. And I think while we have taken many, many good steps, few tweaks here and there, few timely steps can really help us secure our position in the supply chain. Thank you again for all of you for taking the time out. Look forward to staying connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, team. I will request our team to help us. There's a small gesture from our team towards all our panelists. I will request Mr. Rishabh to please do the honor. Meanwhile, I would like to tell you guys, everyone, gentlemen, there's a scanner there on the wall. You can get all your pictures from there from this session within 10-15 minutes. Thank you. I will request anyone from the team to please do the same for Mr. Rishabh. No, please. Thank you very, very much, team, for being here with us. Guys, don't forget to scan and get your pictures. We'll upload the pictures within 15-20 minutes and get all your pictures from this session. Thank you. Don't forget to scan.